Welcome, welcome everyone. I'm just going to let some folks into the room with us. We'll be beginning shortly. While we are waiting to begin, I'm going to ask everyone if you just throw into the chat box where you're joining us from. We always like to see where everyone's from. I know that we get some nationwide sometimes attendance. And also, if you want to let us know why you're joining us. If wherever you saw this, you know this is about money matters, your mindset. And so let us know why you're coming. If there's anything you're anticipating to learn about, anything you want to hear about, any questions you're already coming with, and we'd love to hear why you're here and where you're joining us from. I'm letting a few more folks in. I see they're still joining us. We want to get everyone in with us to start, and I'll start in about a minute. All right, I see we've got New Yorkers, but we got people from all over the place, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm just quickly going to go over some things that I'm sure folks already know. Turn on our subtitles. So my name is Amelia. I am a staff member with the New York State chapter of NASW, so NASW NYS. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Before we start, I do want to mention that this is a chapter chat. Chapter chats are what we started for social connecting while physical distancing. They're really an umbrella to host any conversation with social workers about something social work related or adjacent to social work. These chapter chats do not hold CEs. So if you're looking for CE credits, this program itself will not hold CEs. However, we do have quite a schedule of upcoming programs. We have over 100 self-study programs logged as well on InReach. So I'll shoot that into the chat box a little bit later, but I just want to make sure that we have a disclaimer that this is not a CE program. I'm just going to also talk about how we're going to engage with one another. We are going to ask that during the presentation, you just keep that mute on to minimize the background noise. But when there comes a time, we definitely want to hear from you. Feel free to unmute, feel free to raise your hand, whatever makes you feel most comfortable. During the presentation, feel free to use the chat box. Feel free to use your reactions during the presentation. And I also want to point out that we do have the live transcript on. You can choose to turn that off or on. Just hover your cursor over the caret. You can choose to hide the transcript, view the full transcript. And if that transcript is over someone's face, or if it's over the presentation when that's sharing, you can drag and drop that anywhere on the screen that you would like. So without taking up much more of our time, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters today for Money Mindset. We're really, really happy to have Sascha, Jasper, and Corinna with us. When I first met with them, I could just feel both their passion for social workers, the social work profession, and the community care that comes with financial literacy within our profession. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hello, welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Sascha Owens. I am the lead consultant with Empathy in Action.
And I'm Corinna Espino. I am the founder of Empathy in Action and a social worker in the Bay Area. So hello, social workers from all over the nation. We're so excited to be here with you today to help you all look at yourselves, right? And take care of ourselves in a way that's just as important as the way that we take care of those in our community. And we have a awesome co-facilitator with us as well, Jasper.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for rocking with us today on this chapter chat. My name is Jasper Smith, also known as Mr. Bill Wealth. I am the Director of Disruption for the Bill Wealth Movement, which is a financial empowerment initiative that's geared towards disrupting generational poverty. So that's a mouthful. but we're going to get into it today. And I want you all to sit back, relax, take some notes. And also, Amelia didn't share this, but I'm doing a nice little giveaway. I wrote a book. So I'll assume everybody on this can read. This book is so easy to read, but it'll really give you some more insight into how I think about and how I process all things related to financial planning. So I'm going to be doing a raffle. So Amelia will be working on that in the background. And as soon as I log off today, 8 lucky people will be receiving an e-copy of my book entitled The Build Wealth Challenge. Oh, and with that, you won't believe this. The hardest thing to do is to give away my book for free. So this is free. And just know that I give everybody 24 hours to click the link to redeem their free copy. If any of the 8 do not do that within 24 hours, Amelia is also prepared with another set of 8 people. And I've done this, I don't know, 10 or 15 times, and not all 8 will do it. Don't ask me why, but I'll be sure to get you this free copy of my book, and I hope you enjoy it.
We're so grateful to be partnering with Jasper. As a social worker, I really believe in the power of interdisciplinary work and how different professionals can bring their expertise in a way that's really collaborative and is really innovative. And so that's something that I've really loved and appreciated about working with Jasper, and something that we're so excited to present to you all today. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So brief overview for the day. One second. We're going to first start off with the whole person care model and financial wellness. And then we'll move into financial planning 101. And then at the very end, we're going to have some time for questions. We really hope that this time together, like we said at the beginning, is an opportunity for all of you to look internally, look at your life, look at your goals, and really get that money mindset together, just the same way that we encourage and support that type of wellness for our constituents and our community members.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to dive in to this whole person care model. And we're going to introduce this model as a framework to understand how financial wellness impacts and integrates into the whole person care model. Mm-hmm. So what this model really is an anti-oppressive concept for understanding health and wellness. And it asks us to include multiple aspects that influence our quality of life and our sense of well-being. This concept is really based on a wellness model, which is rooted in indigenous practice, versus a medical model, which is rooted in colonial and imperial practices. The whole person care model considers intergenerational and intersectional components and requires the concept of connection and communal care. Mm-hmm. So the first section of that model is our physical environment, and that is just the places and spaces that an individual lives, works, or must frequent on a regular basis. And this also includes factors like air quality, green spaces, and safety.
The next aspect of this model is the behavioral and mental health aspect. And this is, or a definition I really like for this comes from an article from the Indigenous Mental Health Canadian Native Council's narratives, and it describes healing essentially as restoring balance to the self through relationship with others and the environment. And so it has this really collective, communal-based definition for what behavioral and mental health can look like.
The next section is spiritual, and often people relate that to religion, but that really can be just a connection to something greater than oneself. So it can be religion, but there can also be so many different means for spirituality.
The next aspect is the socioeconomic factors. So these are things like our income, our education, employment, the community that we're living in, the level of safety we have access to. And when we talk about all these things, we also want to hold and remember that there are systems that don't work for all people, right? And so there's different barriers that we might have to face as individuals, and there might be different privileges that we have as individuals too. And so I think there's a way that we can be thoughtful about that intersectionality as we're reflecting on what these aspects and categories mean for us.
Our next section is access to services. So that is medical services, legal services, education, and social services as well.
And then finally, part of the whole person care model, which I feel like gets left out of a lot of Western models, it's community. And so really, this is just those individuals and groups that support one another, whether it's our family, our chosen family, biological folks, or the community that we decide to surround ourselves with.
Yeah, and before we go on, so just for the group, I had personally done a lot of research around this whole person care model with a nonprofit I was working with here in the Bay Area. And I love the model. I've seen different variations of it. But if you all can see it from my perspective, like I'm the money guy. And when I saw the model, I said, you know, money kind of touches all these different categories in some form or fashion. And so I began to challenge some very, I'll say, bright individuals who had designed these models. And I said, hey, where's the financial, we'll call it financial health, the financial wellness category? Because it kind of touches all of these, and yet it's not a standalone category. And so in the work that I do with the Build Wealth movement, like I see this is the problem. We're not talking about money enough, although it has some bearing on all of our livelihoods, be it good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. And so like any model or program, you can say it's flawed, you can say it could be enhanced, but I just kept seeing so many people talk about the model and it's the whole person. I said, so why are we talking about financial? And I kept interviewing my clients, and I would say, hey, have you all heard this whole person care thing? And they would always say, well, you know, my employer does the mental health, the physical health. And I was like, what about the financial health? And they would just pause. And so as we look at a lot of the programming that is presented to us in a variety of ways, where's financial? And yes, and somebody's probably thinking, well, Jasper, you're a financial planner, you sell stuff. Can we get past that? It's a problem, right? So don't, I got singled out because I'm a practitioner, but I said, tell me the model is perfect and I'll leave you alone. So I think that's where, you know, Corinna and Sascha and I all connected when I said, hey, I have clients who, I broke it down to three. It's your physical, mental, and financial health makes you whole. And if one of those is off, you're off, right? So this is why this model spoke so much to me, and Corinna and Sascha and I, we've been having these discussions, and it's around like, let's just be mindful that all of these are important. That's my 2 cents. They're all important.
Absolutely. I think you can't have whole person care and not include financial wellness, because our financial state and wellness determine the levels of access that we have to necessary services.
Preach on, sister. Preach on. Get them.
All right.
And we want to hear what you all think about this, right? We know, and we've been talking, Jasper, Sascha, and I are on the same page. What are you all thinking about? And our first question for you, we would love for you all to answer this in the chat, or if someone wants to share, raise your hand, and we would love to have someone share. The first question is, what category is most important to you? So when you look back at these 6 categories, which one is most important to you? What is that? I'll give folks a second to answer. We have behavioral and mental health,
physical environment,
community.
Socioeconomic factors,
And so one thing that you can see too is how personal this is, right? It's different for everyone. The first 5 answers were all different, and that's because we all have different desires, we all have different goals, we all have different needs, and all these things are integrated. We might value one more than the other.
The next question for you is, what area do you feel you have the most to learn about? So when you think about this, which one do you feel like, I need to know a little more about this? Spiritual access to services.
Access to services, yeah. Spiritual, there's some themes with this one so far.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So spiritual and access to services for most folks who responded, I think this one reflection, especially on the access to services aspect. We and social workers, I'm talking to folks who understand this, like the systems are complicated, right? And our ability to connect with the things that are supportive to us, sometimes that's not very easy to do. And so I feel that one.
Absolutely.
All right, and the next and final question is, what category do you feel most competent in? So when you look at these categories, which do you say like, oh, I got this one. I got this one in the bag.
I have all of them, Corinna.
Yeah.
I'm perfect.
Yeah, Jasper. Jasper being Jasper. Which one? I would say mine would be probably community. We have behavioral mental health. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from social workers, community too. That's been so critical, especially this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Access to services. Maria, you can help us all for the folks who need some support with competency in that area.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of behavioral and mental health. I'm encouraged to hear that. It's been a hard year to feel like we've got a grip on our behavioral and mental health. And so kudos to everyone out there for that. All right, I think we're gonna pass it off to Jasper now for his section about financial planning.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. So really quick, financial planning is a process and people love to skip steps in this process. So I always believe that you should follow steps, but I know we're human and sometimes we just want to skip steps and get to the point and get to the results, right? And so we have to understand that we need a little bit of delayed gratification. And that's hard for a lot of people. And so I have a ton of people. I'll just throw out an example. Earlier this year, cryptocurrency was like a thing. And people would just skip to step 3 and want to talk investments. And I would just ask simple questions around like, hey, how much money do you earn and how much money do you have to even do investing? And they would have this blank look on their face. Well, I just want to get into crypto. That's great. I understand we have the goal, but let's slow it down a little bit. And when I think about planning, this does not encompass every single thing, but I think this hits on a lot of key areas that will at some point in your life be important. Maybe it's not today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's 5 years. You know, when you have a life altering event is the best time for you to really do an assessment of everything. And I know that can seem overwhelming, but the trick is do it bit by bit. so don't feel like you can't do this, but if you want to have, I'll say, a little bit of less stress, because having financial issues causes stress in a number of ways. It makes sense to follow this process around understanding the cash management part, right? I don't want to say the word because I think we're going to do it here in a little bit, but you got to know where your money's going. You have to do some basic things, and it's understanding how that money flows in and out of your bank account. You know, with a job you may have, if you have multiple jobs, if you have a business, it's just understanding that, yes, there are expenses to just living, and having a firm understanding of that is important. You know, I think I put upcoming expenses because I'll share with everybody, I just got married a month ago and I can't stop spending money. Like I'm mad that we keep having to spend money. And I have one more event in 2 weeks back home in North Carolina. And I'm just like, okay, we got to get through this, right? So we're planning for these expenses. But a lot of people want to skip that first step of cash management because it does set the tone for the remainder of your plan. And if we slide over to number 2, which is protection, you will see there are a lot of insurances. I'll be honest, the wealthiest people in the world have a ton of insurance, and there's so many different types of insurance, and it has its place in the overall scheme of the plan. And when people tend to push back on, I'll say the protection section with me, I simply ask this question: if you were going to build a house, where would you start? And the answer is the foundation. You got to have a foundation if you're going to build the first floor, the second floor, and the roof. So we have to think about, are we doing enough by way of protection to ensure that our house will not crumble? And that first bullet point around employee benefits, first line of defense. If your employer offers you anything, I need you to be an expert on what is offered and what is not offered. And I also need you to not be solely reliant on your job to provide everything for you, which tends to happen to a lot of the people that I speak with. So it's take what your employer provides you and then consider looking on the outside to see what else you might need to supplement what you have for your employer, or maybe your employer doesn't offer it. And so you are on your own to get a particular benefit. So I'm gonna pause there because I know your mind's already racing. We'll get back to 3 or 4, but I know the ladies had a nice little activity that we wanted to throw in here to, again, keep you all engaged throughout this time we have today.
All right, so I know we probably all have a lot on our minds. We have shared a slide with you with different emotions. And we know that money means something different to each person. And that meaning really is significant in contributing to our thoughts and our feelings and our interactions that we have with our money. So knowing what money represents to you is a critical part of understanding how you move forward with financial behavioral change. So on this slide, we shared a lot of emotions with you. We are going to say a word, and I'd like you to put in the chat what emotions you feel when you hear this category or topic. So the first one I have for you is budget. What emotions do we feel? Type them in the chat, call them out, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Perplexed.
Panic, strong, constraints.
Stress.
Yeah, lots of different feelings. Organized. Stress.
Thrilled to be able to finally keep one. Heck yeah, Linda.
That's awesome.
Tired of living on a tight one.
Happy. I
feel like that's a lot of social workers.
Yeah.
If there's a word not up there that you cannot say and that you do not want in the chat, you can put the asterisk, because this is what I usually receive when I do different sessions. It's the budget one is the trigger for a lot of people. So I'll get something like this, or maybe like this.
Absolutely.
All right, let's try another word. So if I say the word vacation, what feeling comes up for you when I say vacation? Relief, stress, envy,
Relaxing,
joy,
need one. I love it.
expensive.
Yes.
Very true.
True.
We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Absolutely. All right. I have another category for you. Financial plan. What do we feel when we hear financial plan? Curious.
Hope. We got some confused, some overwhelmed.
Heavy.
Some relief though. And I think that's a little bit to what Jasper was talking about, having a plan, right? Coming up with what your next action steps are can relieve a lot of that stress.
Saving that.
Prosperity, saving, investing. Awesome. All right, we got 2 more words for you all. Second to last word is wellness. This is a very overused word, I feel like, at this point. It has a loaded meaning sometimes, but when you hear the word wellness and when you think of what wellness really means to you, how do you feel about that?
Peace,
Strong,
challenge,
important,
determined,
security. Security for wellness. I really like that. Motivated, peace, positive, secure. So I think wellness, some of the vacation and wellness words were going together. So, let's think about that.
All right, and the last category for you all is credit. How do we feel when we hear credit? Panic, avoid it.
Avoid it, buried,
Marvelous.
Numb. Wow. Y'all are giving me some great material to use in a future discussion. This is real life stuff. And I think from a practitioner standpoint, ladies, like this, it's always a struggle for me to kind of tell people how people feel because I'm not you. Like I'm loving all these responses. I'm like, I know you're thinking it or you're feeling it, and it just feels good to get it out. So I am enjoying all these responses to all the words you all are sharing.
Absolutely.
And I think I just want to highlight as we conclude this activity, it's really to help us identify the feelings that are dictating the behaviors, right? Because we know that a lot of our behaviors can be rooted in these emotions. And so when we take a second to check in, like, how am I really feeling about this? And how is that translating into how I'm acting on it or not acting on it, right? That's what this is meant for. And you can do this too as you progress in your financial planning, and maybe you come to a point where you're feeling a little resistant. That's when you ask, like, what emotion is driving this right now? Is it fear? Am I scared? Is this an energized emotion? And that insight can really help you move. All right.
Love it, love it. So thank you, ladies, for that, because that's what I wish everybody would do when I have like a conversation with a prospective client. I just want you to just be honest. I think that's the toughest part for most people, that we just can't get honest around how we do feel about all these different things. And I joke a lot, y'all, but the reason being is because this is like very challenging material for people to discuss openly and honestly. And so I make light of it. I love bringing humor into all that I do because just think we're human, right? We're gonna have good days, bad days. We all go through our seasons, but over a sustained period of time, like I just wish everybody would show me the progress that they're going in the right direction. So all the fear, the embarrassment, the uneasiness, whatever the emotions are, it's tied to it's tied to this situation of your plan. It's just like, the vacation question. I don't have to coach anybody on how to take a vacation. I mean, you will do all the planning, right? And so I try to share with people, take something that you like to do and then gradually get comfortable with this financial planning process, because it too may begin to energize you once you understand where you are. You understand what you're doing. You've gotten some additional education around all things as it relates to your situation. And so as we look back to the planning diagram, I mean, investments is the one area that everybody comes to me first. I want to invest. So, okay, great. Let's talk about risk. Let's talk about, again, your employer stuff that you're offered. Let's look at everything that's outside of your employer by way of offerings. If you have children, that's another area that you may think about, and maybe you have or haven't done what you wanted to do by way of investing there. But let's talk it through. And so that last area is tax and estate planning. I'm not a CPA by background, but taxes affect everything that we do. I just highly recommend that everybody have a great tax person that's on what I call your money team. You got to have that person. And if they're not good, fire them, get somebody else. There isn't a shortage of financial services professionals. And so the tax piece really gets people into a bind when they don't have that resource to tap into. And then with estate planning, I really wrap this up with a bow and say, leave your family with a love letter. Leave them with some instructions. That's all I ask. I am not an attorney, but I hate hearing stories about how things, I'll say, go down when, the mother, the father, whoever passes away, and then you see siblings fighting. You see properties that were set up or purchased to provide generational wealth. They're sold because the kids need money, and so I wish more people would take the time to, write out that love letter. What would I want to have happened if I died yesterday? It's not a comfortable conversation. And I think in light of, the pandemic, I don't think a lot of people expected to die in the last year. And if you have been personally affected from COVID, I know it sucks. and for the life of me, every time I used to see the data around COVID deaths, I always would think about, I wonder if they had a plan of some sort. I don't care if your plan is on a napkin, an index card, or 10,000 page binder. Just have something. So when the ultimate does happen, your family isn't scrambling, right? And so again, I'm not an attorney, y'all. They are well worth the investment. And as you think about your financial plans and the people you associate yourself with, you have to consider making that investment into that practitioner, or if you are going to do it on your own, just make sure you do plenty of research before you make the decision and not be so quick just to act based on what somebody else told you. A lot of people give you their opinions and they know nothing about your life. Nothing. Your plan is unique to you. Whatever anybody else says to you, their situation isn't yours. So take it with a grain of salt. Check your resources. If you are curious around, well, how many people? I like 3. By the third person, you should be hearing the same type of themes. Set some goals. Let's talk about money. What do you have in place? Let's talk about your risk, your time horizon. You'll start to see kind of the same conversation happening, but you also, and the last thing before we transition is, when doing your financial plan, the person or persons who are on your money team, you need to like them. If you don't like the person, why do they have your money? I will not go off on my soapbox, but if some financial institution has your money and they have not called you in a year, I beg the question, why is your money still in said institution? Aside from calling you to get an updated email address, that don't count. So, like the person or persons you're dealing with, and if a financial institution is not giving you what you need by way of your plan, I suggest you find an alternative. Ladies, I would throw it back to you before I go off on my soapbox, but please, it's your money. And I don't care if it's $2 or $2 million, it's your money and you got options because we live in America.
No, we approve of that message. And I also, it makes me think of, like, in the realm of social work, or when we're thinking about mental health and like matching practitioners or therapists or healers with individuals or groups and families, it's the same process, right? Like, you want to be doing that with someone that you feel connected with. You're going to be in a space where you might have conversations that require you to be vulnerable and super honest about stuff that's hard to be vulnerable and honest about. And so I just encourage you all to use the same strategies that we use for our clients and community members when they're picking individuals to support them, how you're being just as thoughtful about who's in your circle and who's supporting you. We are going to do one more activity together before we open it up for question and answer. And this one really is helping us all think a little bit about what generational patterns are showing up in our financial planning, and specifically in our spending habits. And so one thing that we do want to just start by talking about is something we spoke to earlier, is where we know that our society really creates a system that has these data-backed indicators about gender, sexuality, ability, racial identity, that all have different unique barriers and also challenges and unique privileges that come with those things. And so if we really want to be addressing wellness in a holistic way, we need to be thinking about how we're addressing the system both externally and internally, how we as individuals are giving ourselves and our communities the tools to change some of these generational patterns, but also how are we looking at this larger system that is contributing to things. There was something that one of my colleagues said recently that really resonated with me about having financial literacy or financial wellness workshops with folks who might be making starvation wages. And that's real, right? Like how do we equip ourselves with the tools, but how do we also be really real about the system that doesn't always work for everybody? So in that light, what this activity is really trying to help us do is be just thoughtful about our experience growing up in whatever household that was for you, and think about what did your household do the most with money? What did your household do the least with money? And what you do the most with money and what you do the least with money. And one part about this diagram that helps, if you want to draw it out or do it later, it helps you see the intersection of where some of the habits overlap, right? Where you might have learned it from growing up, from your household, and what things you are moving forward as habits. So we're going to give folks just a couple minutes to think this through, and then we'll have an opportunity to share. I don't know if Jasper has anything he wants to say about this one.
This is my slide right here. You know, I'm disrupting generational poverty, and it is these patterns. All right. I got a ton of stories, but it's always I'll say it's the matriarch of the family, the patriarch, whoever it is, right? It's the auntie, the grandma, whoever. And you'll hear the way they talk about what they want to have happen when they leave this earth. And then you kind of start asking some deeper questions, and you find out they've done nothing. And when I ask why, and I've heard this at least a dozen times, well, my parents didn't leave me anything, so I want my kids to understand the struggle. And in my brain, I'm losing it. I keep it straight, but in my brain, I'm like, do you understand that you repeating that process and it's only going to cause your kids to go through the exact same thing, or it may be they experience things a lot worse than you because you have the ability to share some information that could have broken the cycle of poverty. And I lose my mind when people say, well, I want my kids to understand what it's like to struggle. Look, y'all, my parents grew up poor. I didn't struggle because they were like, if we ever have kids, I don't want them to experience what we experienced growing up. They made a decision. And the decision is that I expect to do the best I can with the time that I have on this earth. And when I leave, I need to leave it as best I could. I won't be perfect, but I'm going to try my darndest to do the best. And then you hand it off to the next generation, and they do 1, 2, or maybe 3 things differently that propels them and the family to the next level. So if anybody comes from wealth or privilege, like this is how it works. You take care of the family or the community, and you keep expecting to do a little bit better. And I do mean a little bit. And that little bit adds up to a lot of it. But when you speak to people who have come from a challenged background, an underserved community, you start to hear the same thing. Here's what I'm not going to do for them. And so you're already pretty much designating that they're not going to make it because you could have provided a few things that could have helped them. Or if you don't know yourself, I hate saying fake it till you make it, but you should. Just tell your kids what you want them to do, but say, mommy and daddy didn't do this, or your grandma and grandfather didn't do this. But we are so afraid of having the conversation and addressing these emotions. Mm-hmm. How long is it going to take, y'all? I don't know if anybody on this session is under the age of 18, But yeah, we grown. How much longer is it gonna take?
Yeah.
All right, y'all got me on a soapbox. Y'all better get me. I'm going back on mute, man.
I think Patricia has something that she'd like to say.
Yes, first off, thank you very much for this presentation. Two things that I have observed is that people who may have grown up in poverty, they may get educational attainment and become middle class. I find that they shower their young people, their children, with material things that don't have value, that depreciate rather than appreciate. The other thing is that this is the only generation that has less money than their parents and grandparents did, even though their education attainment and their earning capability was much less than this generation. And I'm not speaking about X, but I'm talking about, those of us who are adults. They were able to buy houses, send kids to school with less income.
Absolutely. And I think that was part of where we have this like larger conversation about the systems that are at play and like how we're working within that. And I think it's really natural to, when you're moving out of a survival mindset, especially when it's around things that have to do with financial wellness, to develop habits that are comforting, that social workers will be familiar with this, that are like taking care of that inner child, right? Like the kid who wanted some of that stuff, or maybe saw some of their peers have some of that. Now there's this like deeply like rooted desire or need there to do something with that experience. And so one real power I see in this collaboration between social work and financial wellness is that intersection, right? Like, how do these experiences with our families, how do these experiences within the intergenerational history of our families impact how we're showing up for ourselves and showing up for our families right now, while also being cognizant that the system sucks sometimes and makes it way too hard.
Yeah. No, Patricia, I appreciate that remark. And it's very true, right? I'll be the first to say it. You need to live your life. You have one life to live. And so I never want people to feel like I have to cut out all these, maybe it's luxury goods, it's the fun you have, or everybody has a vice. So just deal with it, right? I have mine, you have yours. The show will go on. But it's around, like, how does that affect me in the long run? And so if you have to play a game with yourself of maybe I have to make some sacrifices temporarily, it's not in stone. So if you can dial some things back in the interim, then you can get back to that lifestyle you dream and fantasize about when it's the right time. And so all I try to do with my people is show me you can do it. Prove it to you. I know you have greatness within you, but sometimes it's just not coming out in your bank account. It doesn't look like that in your investment account, your retirement account. You don't feel it, right? You work hard. There's not a person on here who's not going to tell me you're not working hard. And then the question I follow up with is, what do you have to show for it? I feel good too, y'all. When I do volunteer work and help my community, I feel incredible. So I don't, that is never going to not be a part of your lifestyle of wanting to help people. But then you start to see like, well, how is all of the goodness they're putting out into the universe? How are they, how are they utilizing some of these same tools for themselves? Mm-hmm. It's like the doctor who doesn't take care of their health. To this day, it blows my mind. I'm a financial guy, y'all. I'm very fiscally responsible. It's just like, if you're a dietitian, you shouldn't have a bad diet. It's just, some things don't make sense to me. If you are a fitness trainer and I have a six pack and you have a keg, you can't be my trainer. And so it doesn't compute in my brain, right? I mean, y'all know where I'm getting. It's just we keep making excuses why we can't do. I want to see what you will do. I'm going back on mute. I'm going back on mute. I'm upset again. Going back on.
You're making a laugh over here. They might be able to be the trainer, okay? We're not
maybe
body positive here. Body positive. All right. thank you all for participating in that and for your feedback, and for humoring us by digging deep and looking internally for a second to see what we can change, and what habits we can change and do a little bit better for ourselves and a little bit better for our community. We did want to, though, spend this last at least 10, 15 minutes opening it up for question and answers. So any questions that you have about financial planning, some of those burning questions, reasons why credit makes us feel so icky, if we want to throw some of that out there right now, this is your moment to be with a professional and an expert who has all of that information. And of course, if you have any questions about the processing side of how you can fully show up as your full self in the financial process, Sascha and I are here for that. But we would love to hear your questions, your thoughts, your feedback.
I had a comment if I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a social work is my second career. I actually worked in the financial sector prior to becoming a social worker, meaning I was working in banking and credit unions. I wasn't a bankster. I worked in the bank and the credit unions. And I just want to say, if people start out early saving, of course, there's the diversification of your portfolio, but if you start out paying yourself first, by the time you get ready to retire, you'll have a nice little nest egg. And people need to learn how to delay gratification. People do what you want to do, but that first edition iPhone you bought, you don't know where it is now. And, you were supporting sending other people's kids to private schools and to European vacations on our hard-earned money. So I would just say, start out early and save your money.
Yeah. Agreed. I wonder what Jasper thinks about that. But Patricia, I really appreciate that different lens that you can bring into social work too when you're working with your clients and working with your community members. I think that really gives you a cool perspective.
Corinna, I got something to say about that. I love Patricia's remarks.
No, that's why I'm passionate about
it. I want to take it one step further, and this is easy to do for anybody who's on this session or who will review the session. So in theory, paying yourself first sounds easy, but the way to make the commitment to yourself is you have to automate it. If you have to think about, did I save? You probably won't, because something in life is going to happen. So you have to automate it. And then if I go a step further, the same could apply to your investment strategy. I cringe when people say, I don't know how to invest or I don't have enough money. You don't need a lot. Technology has enabled us now to invest for pretty much $5 a week if you can afford that, right? And so there are apps that were created to allow the average person to get started. Yes, it's not going to be $1 million tomorrow, but you have to start somewhere. And if you automated your savings program plus an investment program and give it some time, that is how you do this thing called wealth building, right? And the reason Sascha, Corinna, and I are connected because I have clients who are social workers, and gosh, you all have the biggest hearts in the world. All y'all's hearts are at least 10 times the size of mine, right? So I know that. I don't have to do an x-ray, but you got to focus a little bit of this heart and this care for yourself. It's okay for you to be a little bit selfish. And I know that's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard for you, but if you automate these things, it gets better over time. Because with investing, when people say, well, it's so complicated, I tell you, it's not complicated. And here's my story. And this is a theory that some people subscribe to. Is not perfect, but invest in things that you pay money into. So let's use Apple, right? If you have an iPhone, you should own some Apple stock. That's all I'm gonna say. And for the longest time, I am an Android user, but I also own Google and Apple. So everybody's paying me by buying these phones. And so I would find Apple users, and somebody's gonna laugh, where for the longest time, my friends would say, I'm tired of seeing the green text bubble in our text thread. Jasper, why don't you get an iPhone? And I would say, hey, y'all, how many of you all are shareholders? So thank you all for paying me and clowning me for my yellow text bubble when y'all are making me money. So who's the clown now with the text thread? I'm going back on mute. I'm telling y'all, invest in things that you know and support. There are only X amount of phone companies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile of the big three. Why not have some stock in one of those or all three? I'm giving y'all tips. You should use them. These are legitimate ones that apply to everybody. Invest in things that you know and support because you're already doling out hundreds or thousands of dollars per year or over your lifetime. And so I think you should be getting some of the action just for supporting said brand that you love. It's a theory that a lot of well-to-do people support because it's what you're comfortable with. And that's where investing can be made easy when you're comfortable in investing in things that you like and support.
Absolutely. We appreciate that, Jasper. There's another question for you in the chat too, about if there's any tips for staying on track or getting back on track during a month of heavier spending. And I don't think we've mentioned the wants exercise. So I think that's a good segue.
I did not forget. Oh yes. So to answer the question though, you have to do an assessment all the time. Like it's an ongoing assessment you'll have to do. So when you have a heavy month, so I know we're kind of getting through the summer, it's going to be fall. So people with kids, it's all about school. And then you have the holidays. And so you mentally need to prepare yourself to deal with these same seasons every year. So in case you didn't know, there are 3 holidays that happen every year: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Pre-plan all your holiday travel, gift giving. If you got to do the Christmas account at your bank or credit union, whatever you got to do to hide money from yourself throughout the year, do it. Now, here's the challenge. I want everybody to, this is like the one thing everybody should do. We'd love to hear how it goes, but you have to understand your spending habits. And so I actually don't like doing a budget either. Newsflash, financial guy hates budgeting, but it's important. So I did this activity personally. I recommend it to all my clients as one of those initial meetings. You print out, and I say print out if you have the ability, print out your bank statements from the previous 3 months, or if you're using credit cards, print those out from the previous 3 months. And then you get a highlighter and you highlight everything that was not essential to living. And then you're going to laugh at yourself, because I did the same thing. When you see how much money left your bank account or that you charged up, you are going to laugh. And then you're going to say, wow, I felt like I was living check to check, but now I realize after checking my spending, I actually had another $200 that I didn't even realize that was going out of my bank account. So the once challenge, if you have the ability to print out your statements, your bank statements, your credit card statements from the previous 3 months, you get a highlighter, and anything that was not essential to living, I want you to take some time and highlight it. It is the most eye-opening experience, and it will set the tone for the remaining of your financial plans, the financial planning that you do. But it is one of the very first activities that I require of all my clients.
I think Patricia.
Come on back, Patricia. She's hot. Patricia's hot today, y'all.
I just wanted to say one other thing, and I apologize. I don't mean to monopolize the time, but I would say if anybody, and this is directed towards Lori, because I saw she had made a point, and I DM'd her this. If you are a member of a credit union, there's CUNA Mutual, who will assist you with financial planning, retirement, etc. And it's very inexpensive. If you're a member of a credit union, you know, oftentimes, I just very briefly, there was a gentleman I know who's retired, and he never joined the Navy Federal Credit Union. I was talking to him about a month ago, and he moved his funds over there. And so the credit unions are connected to CUNA Mutual, which is a major investment retirement insurance company, and they have financial planners at the credit unions for free. You can open annuity, open up a brokerage account, etc. And those are services that are available to you if you have access to a credit union.
One thing, Patricia is right on the money. I have told people, whoever has your money, go to them first to see what they can offer you. So in addition to this once challenge, please leverage all of your resources. If somebody has your money, you should ask them, what can they do for you? If they don't have what you need, there are plenty of other options out there for you. So thank you, Patricia, for sharing that, because a lot of times these services are free, and people, again, unfortunately, do not value free financial planning advice. And they also don't value my book that I keep trying to give away for free. So Amelia, I haven't forgotten, but it's on the same lines as what Patricia said. We don't like free financial planning. But if I got tickets to your favorite show, everybody would blow me up like right now. But I know the world I live in, and financial planning just isn't sexy enough for people to want to do it yet. But that's why I work and do what I do, because I hope there's a day where my inbox is flooded, my text messages, my DMs, and they're like, I want to be wealthy. I want to stop generational poverty. Like, I hope, I wish. I keep my fingers crossed.
So I am pulling, I did the random picker. I'm gonna put in the names, the first 8 who were chosen with the random picker. So Mia Sharpio, I have Anna Garcia. I also have Lisa Garcia. That's a lucky last name today.
Hey.
Brandy Perry. I have Cynthia Glickson. Carla Jarvis. And Kimberly Kaufman. So those are our first 8 that were selected by the random picker. I'm going to send their emails over to Jasper shortly, and he will send out that link for the free book.
Hey,
What?
man,
No, Patricia?
that's 7.
That's 7?
Hold on. That's
Hey,
7. Uh-oh, yeah, I caught
I
it.
can't count, okay?
Maggie caught it. Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. I will say I don't have a last name on this person, but I do know that they're still here. It's Tracy. Tracy didn't put in their last name to their registration today, but Tracy, no last name, who said congratulations to everyone, that good karma came back to you, and you were the last one.
Patricia, I'll have something special for you, Patricia.
Yeah.
I got
And
you covered.
we did want to just include a feedback survey for you all too. So if you want to give us some feedback about how this presentation was, what you would like to see more of and less of, it's right there. Also on the screen right now is how you can connect with us. That's our emails and also our websites and social media handles. And so we hope that this is the beginning of the conversation with you all, and we're hoping to have continued partnership with NASW and NASW NYS.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to let everyone know that you will receive this as a recording tomorrow. So you're not going to get it tonight, but you will get it tomorrow. And in that same email, we're also going to include some information on just some free upcoming financial education with this group, with disrupting generational poverty, a little bit how to continue to get in touch and stay informed about both programs related to these issues, as well as our wonderful presenters that have joined us today. So thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great evening, and we will see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.